So the next wine is Essence, and this is a later vintage. So this is 2015, and I think this is really a very good counterpoint to CD, because this is all about precision, and I think it's a wine that will continue to age well in cellar. But if you want something which is zesty and clean and very refreshing, this is a great way of thinking about Chardonnay, I think.
And this is pure Chardonnay, is that right?
Pure Chardonnay, nothing but Chardonnay. So it just gives you that full hit of citrus. I think that's the best way of describing it.
Slightly softer on the nose. It's definitely more rounded.
Yeah, Chardonnay for me is one of those grapes which, the more time it spends under cork or on lees, the more relaxed its nose is and the more giving its nose is. So when we first do dosage trials, it's just absolutely in your face citrus all over the place. And really nice combinations of layers of citrus. So you get that lemon meringue, you get that sort of lemon curd towards just straightforward lemon juice. And so it layers the citrus all the way through, and then underpins it with a bit of, I would say, kind of green apple rather than red apple, but the riper edge of green apple, not that very sort of puckering type of apple. But what do you think? You've just had a sip. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely got a lot of the citrus again, as we've been discussing, and it's slightly softer, and there is more development to it. There's a real drying to the tongue, and I think we mentioned that it's still the same alcohol, but it could just be the back-to-back tasting. It's slightly softer. That's what I'm picking up on. Really well integrated, nice balance, but there is that little bit more texture to it.
I'm very conscious when we make our wines that one of the reasons that some people find sparkling wines difficult is because they associate them with very high acidity. So we try and make sure that our wines are very balanced, because we want people to enjoy them. And this one is about the same on the alcohol. It's slightly higher on the dosage, but it gives you that ripe fruit, zippy, lots and lots of layers, and it has quite a bright quality. And then behind it, there's a little bit of hazelnut and a little bit of sort of slightly salty flavour, which I think has to come just from the soil, to be honest, because we don't add salt to anything, obviously. But I think it makes a wine which is brilliant with seafood, absolutely brilliant with seafood, and absolutely brilliant with informal seafood. So if you want fish and chips and a good glass of wine, this is a brilliant combo. But if you want to be just that little bit more elegant, then you can have your lobster thermidor or your Toba a la creme, and still it's a good companion. So hopefully people enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. It's got a really nice balance to the wine. There's the lovely interplay of flavors that goes on. Again, a good food pairing wine, slightly softer. And again, this is what I love about doing wines back to back. You really pick up these intricacies that you wouldn't normally within wine. It's interesting you say about the food. Totally see that. It'd be really nice to have it with something slightly richer. Yes, overall, just a really well balanced wine and very soft.
I think the other thing that it's very nice with is if you're doing, you've got friends around, things like pork pate served with apple slices, where you've got, or sausage rolls are actually also very good. It just gives you that nice balance of something which has got a bit of herb in it. Works really well as well. So it's a very good, for English cooks, it's a very good wine to pair with.
Okay, I can see that actually. It's not something I immediately would have gone for, so the light pastry style dishes. But as you say, a sausage roll, as soon as you said that, that's perfect. Absolutely, because of the crispness of the pastry, texture of the sausage, and all the slight saltiness as well. It would interplay beautifully. I'm going to have to do that one. Thank you.
That's going to be you running to the local bakery as soon as we've finished. Well, I hope you enjoy it when you get to it. And then the last wine that we've got on today is Tradition. So Tradition is Blanc de Noir. So this is Pinot Noir, and it's got 5% Chardonnay added just to lift the finish.
Again, it's very soft on the nose, nothing too out of kink. It's a very well balanced wine. Definitely more of the cooked fruit again. That's what I'm picking up on, like the apple strudels and the baked tart.
This is, for me, this is apple crumble territory. So you get the shortbready notes from Lee's aging. You get the ripe red apple, almost caramelized red apple coming through. And then as you move towards the finish, instead of showing up the sort of citrusy notes you might expect, you get more of the, what I call the English tangy fruit. So you'll find the rhubarb, you'll find a little bit of Seville orange, you'll find a little bit of red currant, a little whisper of raspberry just going on quietly in the background. And I think that's just enough to, again, to sort of lift it and stop it from being too heavy on the palate. I mean, this is, for me, this is the most wonderful wine to have on a winter Sunday with a roaring fire and a roast to follow. You know, you can start with a glass of this and then take it to the table with you, and it will stand up to pretty much anything, roast pork particularly, but, you know, great with chicken, great with beef. And there's something very mellow about it, I think, in terms of, if I was going to have a glass of wine for a special occasion, just to have the joy of a glass of wine, I think I'd reach for Tradition a lot of the time, because it delivers on all of those sorts of layers of emotional context.
I agree completely with you, what you were saying about the having it with certain types of food. I mean, you painted the picture beautifully on a Sunday afternoon. I almost wish I was there now. I could relax a bit more, but it's interesting because these wines all have this identifiable feature through them. There's this common thread of balance between them all. Nothing's too out of kink. You've still got the citrus elements, which is really important, because I think that's a good definition for our industry, to have the freshness. You want your wines to have a crisp edge, and then it's how that's balanced and what textures come out from within the wine, you know, how much aging and so forth, and then what that can bring to it. So with this one, it's the softness, it's the smoothness, and it's how the fresh fruits interact with that.
Yes, I mean, occasionally we get customers who say, oh, I don't like champagne, I don't like English wine, as in sparkling. And when I say to them, what is it that you don't like? It's overt acidity that upsets them. And when they taste this, they go, oh, but this is lovely. And because it has that gentleness, it doesn't, you know, it wants to be your friend. It doesn't want to have an argument with you. No, and so I think it is the ultimate friendly wine. And if somebody ever says to me, you know, I've got a friend, I want to send them a bottle, I often say to them, well, send them Tradition, because it will make friends with pretty much everybody.
And is this we've got the 2014 vintage. So is that, do you have any wines that are older, or is that as long as you guys have it for now?
I do. I have Tradition 13. I still have a tiny amount of stock of that, and I do mean a tiny amount, a handful of cases, which I think is also drinking very beautifully. It's more autolytic being a year older, but it's got enough structure and enough fruit to it to still be, I think, a really enjoyable glass of wine. We're also doing what I hope will be a fun thing with Tradition. We made a few batches of it, all from the 2014, some of which we're holding back for long lees aging. And so there will be a future edition, which will be a long lees version of this particular cuvee, which I'm quietly excited about. I'm not shouting about it yet because I don't want to take it out of the cellar yet, but I think it will be a really quite lovely wine when we do release it.
When do you plan on bringing that out of the cellar, as it were?
I might bring it out next year or 2023. I haven't quite decided yet. What we normally do is put a couple of bottles into a gyro pallet when we're doing other stuff, and so we can monitor progress on wine that way. And we're about to put some more stuff in just to see where we are with some of the more recent vintages. So we will be looking at the 2016 on the Essence fairly soon, and the longer lees aged version of Tradition. And then probably look at the Meunier next year as well. So we try very hard to make sure that all of our wines have good lees time and then a bit of good cellar time. And just every now and again, we get a vintage where people go mad for it, and I'm sort of holding back, going, I don't really want to get the next lot out yet, but I'm beginning to run out. So we have to be a bit careful about it.
Well, that's a common theme throughout the industry, is how do we balance stock levels with supply, and whether we have enough wine to start with, and so forth. So you're not alone there.
Well, I think the thing for us is we know what we are, and we like what we are. We like being a boutique producer. Our interest is in making really delicious wines that people just love drinking, and that's what we are here for. And so we are able to manage ourselves on the basis that we're not going for great growth, we're not going for world domination, and there are lots of other people making lovely wine who are doing that. And so, we know where we sit, and our ambitions are all about wine quality rather than corporate scale. We like running it between the two of us, and we think that it is a sustainable position to do so. And so, bobbling around at our level is good. It also gives us the freedom. So if, as in 2017, when the Meunier was particularly good, I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, I want to do another Meunier, and this fruit's fantastic. There's nothing stopping me. I didn't have to sit and worry about corporate guidelines or anything like that. I can do what I think is right at the time. And it does sometimes make it a little bit patchy. I've had to learn to curb my enthusiasm for doing too many limited editions. So we do some wines absolutely consistently. We do the Blanc de Noir, the Blanc de Blanc, the Pinot Gris, and Meunier increasingly. And then I play at the margins with things that I think are going to be interesting. So wines like CV will only ever be a one-off limited edition. When it's gone, it's gone. But there are other limited editions coming through. So I hope our customers sit there going, we really, really like the Fox and Fox wines. We know we have a reliable supply of the ones we really like, but every now and again, we can do something just that little bit more interesting and have something slightly different from them.
Well, it's important to do that, because you it's keeping your interest in the wines as well, because you want to keep things fresh, you want to keep things exciting. And so if you've got these limited edition wines that you will be putting out there and in small batches, it's a great way of doing that. Jonica, thank you so much for the tasting, 4 superb wines. Before we wrap up, what are the future plans? What's coming next for Fox and Fox?
Oh, future plans. Well, they're all about the wine, really. So we have got something coming out next year, which I can't tell you any more about at the moment, which I think will be fun. We have more of our wines coming through in Magnum, which I love. So tradition in Magnum from the 14 is absolutely fantastic. It's developed more slowly, so it's got a little bit more of a citrus kick to it. But it's a wonderful way to celebrate a special day. Absolutely fantastic wine. And then we have essence and inspiration coming through in due course in Magnum. So I think that we have some exciting other vintages in cellar, which, you know, will appear in their own time. But it's difficult for me to talk about them because in my head, they're in the cellar until it's time to look at them. And so I find it very difficult to suddenly think, oh, yes, that's going to be exciting. But what we really care about is just making wine that people want to drink. That's what matters to us, is that, you know, somebody buys a bottle of Fox and Fox and they take it home and they go, gosh, that was better than I'd expected. I really liked it. You know, I'm going to try some of their others. And so that's kind of a good way to be, I think. After all, you're buying a bottle of wine. What happens in your mouth is all important. And so that's where we focus, really. We just want to make lovely, lovely wine to drink.
Well, I agree with you. And for me personally, wine has always been about creating a moment to, it's like time out from everything. I'm just going to sit and I'm going to enjoy my glass of wine, whether it's by myself or with some friends or with food and so forth. But I always think it's about creating that pause, as I say, that moment to just be, because there's so much going on with wine. As you know, we've been talking now for a good 50 minutes or so, which proves it, and people do pick up on this. Jonica, thank you so much for today's tasting. It's been absolutely wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, other than to say thank you very much for your support. We're so happy to be working with you. And thank you for enjoying our wines. That's the most important part. So here's to you.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you so much.